Welcome back to Kind Regards the show. If you're anything like me, you spend a bit of time on the internet. Perhaps you read some newsletters about sort of productivity or optimization of some sort. Perhaps you're in the sort of self-helpy sphere of YouTube. And if you're in this world, they talk well, one of the sort of like buzzwords is, or buzz concepts is, this idea of like disconnection. So the internet is great, they say, and it gives us all access to all of this stuff. But if we overdose on scrolling or on podcasts or on content generally, then what's going to happen to us? We're going to be all burnt out and frazzled, and our head's going to be filled with stuff, and that will feel bad. They say, oh boy, will it feel bad to be connected all the time. So we need this downtime. We need emptiness, silence, stillness. The kind of like feeling of not having anything on our plate or not having anything to do. Perhaps they would say, take a walk without taking music with you, or take a walk without taking a podcast with you. Just walk. Or they might say, if you're going outside to have a tea, don't take your phone. Just sit outside with the tea and just do that. Just do nothing. We don't have to be doing a million things at once. When cutting onions, in the words of Michael Pollan, just cut onions. You don't have to be watching something or half reading something or talking to someone all the time. So this is sort of a pretty common prescription amongst the sort of self-helpy area of the internet, if not in books and sort of other places too. There is one problem, though, with this that sort of Oliver Burkeman has pointed out, which is that although we're disconnecting in order to feel better, what a lot of people miss is that initially we're going to feel way worse. So why is it that we listen to a podcast every time we go for a walk, or we can't possibly cook in silence without anything to watch while we're kind of half cooking, half watching? Why do we do this? Why do we reach for our phone? It's probably because we have some sneaking anxiety, some like feeling of discontent or being ill at ease that we want to sort of cover up with taking our mind away to some other place by someone talking about a history event or someone making jokes on a comedy podcast or whatever. Those are my sort of classic too. And so when we stop doing this, we shouldn't expect, let's say you take this advice, you hear this advice, and you go, oh yeah, I'm always listening to stuff. Like when can my emotions really shine forth? When can I really be in touch with like my true self, my inner self? Like I'm always just listening to stuff and like taking in content. And my lunch break, I'm just like scrolling, like, oh, I'm going to cut all this stuff out. Let's cut it out. We need to expect when we do this that we're going to feel worse before we feel better. And that the worst feelings, in my experience, are going to be more acute, or maybe that's not the right word, more apparent than the good feelings are. Good feelings have a sort of stealth to them. You can feel happy without actually realizing that happiness has arrived. You can feel at ease without even noticing that you're relaxed. But it's more rare to feel negative emotions without knowing that you're feeling negative emotions. Do you know what I mean? So anger or frustration or anxiety or sorrow or loneliness, they have a kind of impact or imprint that is really easy to notice. So I say this because when we are doing this sort of thing, we might see a lot of negative results. When we cut everything out, we might be going for our walk, we might be really bored, or all of a sudden, all this stuff starts annoying us, all these sticks in the road, you keep tripping, or things get caught on your shoelaces, you're picking things out of your shoelace, and this stuff might get really annoying, and we might feel like the walk is actually worse without this content. Until, hopefully, I assume that there's some kind of a threshold here, where when you start taking content away, there's a bit of a delay, and then sort of mindfulness and greater awareness and spaciousness of your mind sort of comes up, and we can enjoy that, especially if we're looking for it. Like I said, it can be a bit stealthy. But yeah, I think this is a great point from Berkman, that things have to get worse before they get better sometimes. And without this advice, you cut a bunch of content out of your life and you just feel terrible. You feel bored, you feel more anxious, you feel more sad, you start questioning your life, you feel more existential, all of these things that were already there, but they were sort of covered up by activity and busyness. And all of a sudden these things get revealed to you. That sounds like a terrible outcome, but I think what is beautiful about that is that really we want to be facing our lives. We want to be facing the emotional challenges of, maybe not being in a job that we love. There's going to be challenges there, and we want to face that. We want to come face to face with what life actually is, what is really going on in our unconscious or subconscious, and really be in touch with ourselves, so that we can be responsive to our emotional needs. And of course, we can't do this if we're constantly intaking. When is there quiet enough that our inner sort of selves can speak to us and say, like, things aren't actually going very well, and maybe it's this, or you need to change that. What if it was different? What if you changed something? Just pause 1 second. I'm getting a phone call. Sorry about that. I just got a phone call from an old friend. But yes, continuing on with the idea that, well, let's put it this way. My friend has a cousin, or had a cousin. I assume he's still around. And this cousin was deep in the sort of like dopamine mining sort of life patterns, right? He came and stayed with my buddy, and he would be playing a video game, and then he would also have an episode of The Big Bang Theory, and then he would also have his phone. And so he'd play the game for about 2 minutes, play a game of Fortnite, and he'd die on Fortnite, and then he'd press play on The Big Bang Theory, watch that for about 2 minutes, get bored, press stop on that, scroll for about 2 minutes, and then he'd be ready on Fortnite, he'd play Fortnite, and he would jump between these three things, like 2-3 minutes on each thing, just relent, like such a short attention span, so like thirsty for the next like hit of something. And yeah, if we imagine someone who's deep in the hole like this, someone who has to be doing 2 or 3 things at once all the time, otherwise they're just painfully bored. The advice to disconnect, the advice to sort of, how about you just sit in silence for 10 minutes? That, that'll make you feel great. It's like, dude, that's going to make him feel terrible. That's going to make him feel so bad. It's always so much harder before it gets easier. It's always, it's a lot of our sort of, like I said before, insecurities or anxieties or sorrows or boredom is going to boil up to the surface where it belongs, and we're going to have to process that and take it in and incorporate that and listen to that, accept that before I think we're going to feel really peaceful and empty and all that stuff that we're looking for when we're told to disconnect. When people say, disconnecting is so good, that's what we're after. But we got to go down to go up. I think that's a great reminder. It's good to know what you're in for before you take on the thing. Otherwise, we're just stuck. We'll be stuck in the loop of being connected all the time, jumping from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, sleep, wake up, phone out, YouTube video, blah, 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 breakfast with a podcast on, watching something while we eat lunch, like just nonstop activity. And every time we try and get off this train, we'll feel terrible. We'll jump straight back on. And that is a pretty unfree way to live. It's a really dependent way to live on content. And it's also a way to live that has diminishing returns. Watching YouTube after a period of not watching YouTube is really fun. Like, it's really satisfying. There's heaps of good content out there. It's really, you might be doing it right now. It's fun to get new ideas, all this new stuff, great. But new stuff eventually loses its like excitement, its novelty. And when we become saturated in it, it's not worth as much anymore. And so we don't want to do that. If we want to maintain the worth of these good things, these enjoyable things, what we also need is to be away from them. That's going to hurt. That's the point of this video. Thanks very much for watching. This has been Kind Regards to the show. I've got a YouTube and a Spotify link below, and I've also got a Substack link where I write articles if you want to check those out. They're a bit longer and a bit more in-depth, but about similar sort of topics: attention, relationships, love, meditation, awareness, and sort of just how to live the good life, how to live better, I suppose. But yeah, thanks very much. I appreciate it. Sorry, there was a bit of a delay between the last videos and this one. I was a little bit busy and this got put on the back burner. But I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to have your attention again. Thank you very much. It means a lot. You could be watching a lot of other stuff, but I hope you enjoyed this. That's all. Thanks very much. See ya.